Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgianna.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to get out of the abusive relationship you might have with yourself. You can find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram, and you can learn more about us and how to practice with us live at wholeheartedloving.com. Before we get started, we will do a related body-based self-connection practice.
Okay, so this is a fun one that we just did this morning in our Priming the Body for Peace group, and we thought it might be fun to share it with you as well. We're going to use our hands, and I'm going to give you the option to explore what it feels like to sit on your hands or like tuck your hand under your leg. And maybe you just start with one actually. Just tuck one hand under your leg. And notice where you tuck that hand and how that feels. And then I think we'll shift from now try moving it a little bit backwards to under your butt and see how that feels. Or maybe it was already under your butt. So we're just practice changing where we place that hand and see how that feels. And then practice moving it in the other direction and see how that feels. And then we'll practice, let's do this version, 2 hands. Okay. And notice whether you are now sitting on your hands with like your palms upwards or your palms facing down. And see what's different or the same for you. So we're just trying all these different variations. What is it like with palms facing up or palms facing down? What do you notice as you move your hands closer to the back of your knee versus closer to or under your butt? See if you can notice what feels better or not so good or sort of neutral. And I'm noticing also what happens to my breath, because I notice there's a difference there. So you might notice that as well. This is so interesting. I'm starting to notice even more different things than when we did it earlier.
What are you noticing?
Well, what I was noticing is I prefer, I started with just one hand, palm facing up, tucked under the middle of my thigh. And I realized that doesn't actually feel that great. And then I think I moved it to under my butt. I'm like, oh, that feels a bit better. And then I feels a bit better because I think there's a part of me that enjoys feeling the weight of me on my hand. I enjoy that feeling of pressure. And then I move my hand more towards sort of just the back of the knee, where my knee and my lower leg meet. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't feel good at all. I don't like that feeling. But then what I noticed is if I put 2 hands under me, that feels better than 1. I like that better. And same thing, middle doesn't feel as good as just under my butt. And then I definitely notice, this is so crazy. Immediately, I feel a difference. I just turn my palms so they're facing down, and immediately I get that feel that I got earlier today, which is now I'm sort of a girl in trouble. A girl in trouble, or timid and unsure and sort of just waiting to get in trouble. And what else? And I noticed that if I sit and change it again. Oh, it's even worse. It's even worse if I have my palms facing down and then sit on them under my butt.
Worse
That
than at
feels like I'm
mid-thigh.
being punished. This feels like punishment. Like I'm being
Interesting.
punished, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's really neat. And then I think I tried if I sit with my hands the same way, palms facing down and closer towards my knees, it feels like I've been told to not move around and fidget. And I have the impulse to move around, but I'm trying to keep myself like trying to follow the rules and like
Right.
do the opposite of what my body wants to do. Like just hang on, don't move. You've been told don't move. You need to obey and listen and make someone else comfortable.
Right. Yeah. I
This
have
feels like
the
what was
same.
that? Yeah.
It's not associated with trouble for me, but it does feel
Okay.
childlike. Yeah. So the reason that this kind of thing is important, we talked about this on the call too, that we're carrying these subconscious associations with us all the time, and they're informing our mood, they're informing our thoughts and the stories we're making up about the situation we're in. So it's really useful to know, hey, my body feels comforted if I have my hands palms up under my mid thigh. That's a way I can bring a bit more comfort and grounding to this moment. If I flip them over and have them palms down, I feel like I'm a little girl in trouble, and that's not the best energy to be bringing into a difficult conversation or like asking your boss for a pay raise. There's really great ways to use what your body tells you about this stuff.
Yeah, like so when I sit on my hands, palms facing up, and I've tried this a few times now just to check in, I get a totally different feeling, which is I get to decide how I want to be and I get to be comfortable. And I'm like, here, I'm present with you. And there's a little bit of playful and alive energy, which totally is not the feel of any of those other positions. And so on the call, we were also talking about the mindset sometimes that we're bringing in to a conversation, right? And if I've coupled up that anytime someone is giving me feedback, it means I'm in trouble or they don't love me or they think I am messed up and always do everything wrong. Now I have that mental story I'm bringing in, and that's going to create a certain feel in my body. Now I add that unknowingly with I'm going to sit on my hands with my palms facing down, and I'm like, my whole body has that old body memory of being a little girl in trouble. And then I'm going to listen to you say things to me about how you feel about stuff and what's not going well for you. For me, I already feel like recipe for disaster. Like I've already set myself back in a way that wasn't necessary, right? Where I'm likely not going to be able to be very present with what the person's actually saying without going into all sorts of stories about how I'm bad and terrible and completely dysregulating myself.
Yeah.
Whereas if I know that one of the ways to feel really open and grounded and like connected to myself is to sit on my hands with my palms facing up, I'm bringing a totally different energy to our conversation space,
Yes.
right? If I know that I tend to couple up getting feedback with meaning I'm a bad person and I suck at something, then I can already help my mind look for a different meaning I could give to the situation. It could be, I really want to understand this person better, right? And so I really want to hear what's working for them and what's not. This relationship really matters to me. All of a sudden, I'm coupling up something very different with the act of hearing feedback, right? Or I could couple up this person cares about our dynamic and our relationship so much that they want to bring their honest truth to me. I'm appreciative of that, right? And all of a sudden, I'm coming in with a different story in my mind, and I'm using movement and posture and touch in a way that elicits a totally different kind of energy within my body.
Exactly. This is such a huge piece of agency, and this ties in really beautifully with the topic of the day, which I think we're going to define a whole lot more. But the ways that we talk to ourselves, the ways that we either offer or don't offer ourselves support, to what extent are we helpful with ourselves and our needs and our feelings, especially in relationship with other people, but also when we're just home alone. That's the relationship that we have with ourselves. And it often is not nearly as nice as we might offer to other people, our thoughts, words, and feelings. Do you want to talk a little bit more about, do you want to define these terms? We're talking about being in an abusive relationship with ourselves. What does this mean?
Yes, right. And so I think just off the bat, I want to name that being in an abusive relationship can be very triggering and difficult to hear for people who have had that experience. So we want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself while you listen to this episode and doing what you need to feel supported, or calling on who you need to have with you to feel supported. And also to know that we don't take that lightly, to be in an abusive dynamic with someone. And for the sake of this episode, we really want to look at, how are we really unkind to ourselves sometimes? This is what it's about, right? And is that the type of relationship we want to be having with ourselves? And what kind of relationship do I want to grow into with myself? And so hopefully the things we share here help you bring a little bit more awareness to what would feel good for you. How would you like to connect with yourself and relate to yourself and support yourself? How would you like to think about yourself and speak to yourself and support yourself and respond to yourself in different scenarios in everyday life?
Thinking of how limiting my awareness would have been many years ago, listening to you say those words, the space of possibility was so limited to what I had seen and experienced. And like movies and Cosmo magazine and, all these places that are not necessarily designed to show us how to be in a healthy, happy relationship with ourselves or other people. But I wonder if you could talk a bit more about making space for possibility when it comes to how we want to feel in a relationship.
Yeah, okay. So it's hard to dream of something you don't know sometimes, right? So I think that is actually, it's good that you name that. Is sometimes we don't even know what we might want or desire because it seems inconceivable. I think to imagine, like, what would light you up if you got to really, like, sprinkle some magic on your life and it got to be the most ideal version? How would you like to be in relationship with yourself? How would you like to think about yourself? And that's just one way, right? Maybe you have no access to the answers through that line of curiosity. That's okay. I'm curious if you've ever seen somebody in a relationship treat their partner really nicely. And you notice a tinge of jealousy. I want that. I wish my partner was that way with me, or I wish I had someone to treat me that way. Or if your cynicism comes up, that's ridiculous. That's not real. That's just pretend. That's fake. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? So I think both of those can give us a little sign of what is it underneath that we desire, right? What is this showing me that I might desire or might want for myself, or at least know I don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And does knowing that you don't have it, does that bring you deep joy because it feels good to not have it? Or does it bring some other feelings
Mm-hmm.
that maybe you're really aware of what those feelings are? Maybe it's just like, what does that bring up for me?
Yeah.
Facing the reality that I don't have that in my life.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think you could also ask. I remember making lists of qualities I wanted in a partner years ago. And I think partly this was informed by when we brought this up in our women's groups. The predominant thing that people were looking for was a feeling of safety with their partner.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, of course, safety. We could probably talk about that forever, but we were like, no, that's not what we mean. We want you to feel a baseline of safety. Let that be a given. What are the things
Mhm.
you want to dream about, right? And even that would have been difficult for me, like, because my dreams were so restricted. But if you had asked me like an inverse negative question, what do you think is too good to have? What do you think is
Yes,
too
I
good
like
for
that.
you to have? What do you feel like is an impossible thing that you desire in relationship?
Yes. Yes, right? And so here you notice that there's no one right way to get to know yourself. There's so many different lines of questioning. And depending on where you are in your relationship with self and just who you are, like how you're wired, different lines of questioning and lines of curiosity might get you completely stuck and you have no answer and you're blank. Tweaking the question a little bit might all of a sudden open up something for you. So I think this is a kinder outlook also for people who are like, oh, journaling doesn't work for me, or I have no self-awareness. Was working with a client recently. She's like, I'm not self-aware at all. I was like thinking to myself, really? And she's like, yeah, people give me these lists of like 24 character traits or values in life. And they ask me to pick what's most important to me or the top three. I'm like, how am I supposed to pick? Like, I like them all. And I have a yeah, but for everything and a context for everything. It depends. And so we talked a little bit more about them. I offered them to this person 3 qualities at a time, 3 values at a time. And we said, out of those 3, pick one. Out of the next 3, pick one. Out of the next 3, pick one. And each time they were like, yep, got it, got it, got it, got it. Oh, I got to think about that one a little bit, but got it. And then in the end, they noticed, oh, like I actually do know myself more than I give myself credit for. It's just the other way of getting to that clarity isn't really my style.
Yeah.
Right. So even in us, um, sort of posing this question to you or any of the questions to you, if nothing comes or you feel stuck, doesn't mean you don't know yourself, doesn't mean you're never going to know yourself, but maybe there's a different way of framing something that resonates for you more,
Yeah.
that
So
works with
one of
your
those,
wiring a bit better.
yeah, right? You had, I think, a meme that kind of brought this up for us. And it's funny because we, as usual, sort of thought of them in inverse ways. The meme that you're, I think, about to share is a really positive way about looking internally. And then I'm like, well, the opposite is, self abuse. And we just don't think of it that way because it's the house we live in, right? It's our body,
Mm-hmm.
it's our mind.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to share that?
Yeah. Let me pull that up. Let's see where it is.
It's so obvious when it's outside ourselves, right? Not so obvious when it's inside.
Some souls are like warm homes to your nervous system. They don't drain you. They don't demand a specific version of you. They just let you be. And in that being, you soften. This is from an Instagram post by Vex King Writes.
I almost want to take each of those parts, phrases, and
Mm-hmm.
use them as self-reflection, right? Like it's
Okay.
so
Yeah.
easy to go, this person, I feel safe and warm with that person. It's like, have you
Mm-hmm.
considered if you feel safe and warm with yourself or what that looks like, what the feeling is inside?
Yes, and I think one second, I'm just gonna come back to you. I think when you think of a safe, warm house, and this sort of makes me think of, when we ran women's groups and women would say, well, I want to feel safe in my relationship, right? And in my friendships. And yes, excellent. And what does that mean to you? How does that look and how does that sound, right? So, what would someone be saying to you? How do they speak to you? In what tone? With what kind of words? What's their body language like when they're around you? What would you see them doing? How would they be treating you if you felt safe? Right? And
Yeah.
that's like in general. But another way to reflect on it, I always like bringing in examples. If you were excitedly sharing something like that you're super excited to embark on, right? Or you're having a really hard day, or you're feeling emotional about something that you don't even know why, what would a safe response be like for you? What would that sound like? What would that look like? Can you describe it? And so,
Okay, wait,
yeah,
pause. There's a
wait.
billion things to unpack there because for so many of us learning what safety means, right? We're thinking in terms of familiarity. What feels normal to my body? Well, if you've come from a family where they mock every new idea that you've got, and you leave feeling like, forget it. I'm never going to be able to
Mhm.
accomplish that. That's going to feel
Yes.
comfortable.
Yes. So that nuance is important too. Like, do you mean you want a sense of safety in that I want a sense of familiarity? Or do you define a sense of safety in like a different way of it's not familiar to me. It's I say I want it. It actually feels a little scary and I'm a little bit cynical about it. But I do think ultimately I would like someone to respond to me this way. I think that I could grow into learning how to receive that and that actually would feel better. Is that your definition of safety? And what's interesting also, because I work with couples and I see this like how I'm seeing it is obviously this is generalizing, but in like a man woman relationship, what I hear often is the woman saying, well, I want to feel safe with you. And a man sort of looking a little confused, sometimes even a little offended of like, what do you mean you don't feel safe with me? That's one thing because in their definition of safety and providing safety, they feel like they've done their utmost to provide that. So what I notice happening is they're defining safety differently or in a way that's not clear to each other. Right? That's one thing. And also, and maybe it's the circles you run in, who you're sort of the languaging that's common in those worlds. You and I, when someone says, I want to feel safe in a relationship, we pretty much get what that means. But there's other people that are like, and by get what that means, I also have a sense of how it would be helpful for me to show up for you in hard times and good times and in between times that would probably give you a sense of safety. But it's also possible that people are like, that is so vague. I don't know what that means.
Hmm.
Right? Can you be more specific? And I see these women then practicing being more specific. That would mean in this scenario, could you say this to me? And when you say it, could you have a hand on my lap? Right? Or when I come into the room, could you greet me with a smile and some acknowledgement that I've entered the room?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, of course, I could do that. That's simple. I want to do that for you. But they might not have made that connection that that's what you mean by, I want to feel safe with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think that's can be a confusing one because feelings are subjective, right? And often we mean that we want our emotions to feel held and welcome, while at the same time not holding our own emotions and having all our assumptions about how they will be held. I certainly didn't grow up having emotions held and welcomed and normalized, so I expected that people wouldn't be able to do that for me. Actually, I have a little example. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
The idea of bringing a new idea to someone and how they'll respond to it. I was so programmed to expect objections, like an
Mm-hmm.
immediate array of objections and problems that might happen with my idea. And when I first encountered people, like that's such a normal response from people, right? It's much less usual to just have somebody go, amazing, that's great, period.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
So when I first encountered the yay response, the totally not loaded in any way, just supportive response, I introduced all my own objections. Like someone would just be in the energy of yay, and I'm like, no, 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 you're supposed to be in the energy of objections. So like, I'll fill in that blank for you,
So
just like
then
that.
you would actually name all the objections?
Yeah, the objections that surely they must be having in their mind and not saying out
Right.
loud. Like, I know it
Right.
probably won't work like this, and I'll probably need to worry about all these other things, and like,
Right. Oh, I've done that for sure before. Like trying to get to the objections before they get to the objections,
yeah,
right? And those would be the objections that if they said those to you, that you'd be pissed about and annoyed
yeah,
about and hurt
yeah,
by. Yeah.
yeah. And these are not like, in terms of self kindness, like, that's not a major, oh, you've been hurtful, but it's a slight chipping away. Like, it's a not helpful in that moment. And if we're doing that to ourselves, especially on an ongoing subconscious basis, that's
Yeah.
creating an internal dynamic that we're then manifesting
Right.
in so many ways.
So, 2 points I want to touch on, see if I remember them. I'm wondering when someone, because you had the expectation that your idea would be met with objection, when someone came with yay energy, was there ever a point where you're like cynical of that yay? Like, that can't be true. They must be lying to me. They're just, messing with me.
Yes. So before I believed it was possible, would have only cynicism would have been my only option. So it'd be like, oh, they're
Yeah.
just saying yay because they don't want to have this conversation, or like
Right.
they're humoring me and they secretly think all these other horrible things.
So really, what you're saying, I gotta write this down so I don't forget. So you want it. You want their enthusiasm. And yet when you get it, yeah, well, that's what I mean. But then when you get it, you push against it and you fight it and you tell yourself it can't possibly be true and they're lying to you.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
I think it's a little bit worse or more than that, because it's not just that I want them to celebrate me. I want them to like tell me I'm a good girl and how great it's gonna go, and like pat me on the head, and yeah, I'm 5.
Right. I'm 5. Yeah, I'm 5 often. There's no shame in that. I really want to name this with so much compassion and understanding that often the things we claim to want with our words that we say to ourselves or other people, when we get flavors of them, I'm not even saying when we get the whole thing, when we get flavors of that, that's obviously unfamiliar to us, notice in what way and how much you let it land and you receive it, and how much you push it away and make it wrong and like make it still not quite right or whatever it is, right? So, like, it happens all the time that we claim to want something, but we really don't know how to let it land and receive it fully. Right. And that's okay. It's part of the process and you can grow that skill. But it's just having that awareness of, isn't that funny? And notice that I'm saying, isn't that funny? Like, bring some lightness to it. Isn't that funny how I claim to really want this love and intimacy, but like just you looking at my eyes and making eye contact freaks me the heck out. But I'm telling you, I want intimacy with you. Like, what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I really want to be seen and understood by you. And I'm terrified to tell you my truth.
Yeah.
How do those go together? But that's how it works, right? That's how it works until we build that muscle to actually learn to receive the thing that we are claiming we want. And we do want. Ultimately, we do want it, right? How do I learn to show more of myself to you so that I can experience the thing I want to experience with you? Like, how is it possible that I'd ever be seen, accepted, or understood or heard if I don't show you and I don't speak up and I don't let you really see the real me, right? So I got to practice those things in order for you to, help co-create that experience with me. And then I also have to practice learning to receive that and let it really land in me. And also register as happened. And what I mean by that is sometimes you may think you have received a compliment or something from someone. And I'm speaking from personal experience. They'll have done something nice, and this is often in intimate partnership. They'll have done something nice, said something nice, and maybe I've even received it in the moment, but it hasn't totally registered and in the bank, because very quickly when another thing goes off where we fall out of attunement with each other and we have a little rupture, I have forgotten that already. It is not in the bank. It is no longer in the bank. It's not in the context of a relationship at all. And all of a sudden, you're just a jerk to me, and you always are. And really, you probably don't even love me. Right. So there's all these little skills that are really important for us to practice growing if we want the thing we say we want.
Yeah. For me, it reaches the body not as quickly as the head. So I have to employ the head to meet the body. Like in the example, I'll use the example you gave of intimacy. I really want intimacy with you, and the eye contact is freaking me out. That's something, if I named, it would allow me space to do the thing. If I had the agreement of the other person, or the understanding that, like, I've named this thing, this is what I want. Do you understand that and also want that? Okay, great. And now I'm going to be a little bit, whatever it is, fill in the blank, timid or bashful, or I might look away, but what I want is this. Like, are you here with me for this? Then I can do it.
Yeah. right? So, and there's sweet ways to practice that together, right? When you can name it and you can name to someone, I really want to be able to connect with you this way. And it feels a little scary still. And so because it feels a little scary, I might turn away still, but really I want to be looking at you. And like you can find a playful way to practice that. But that's not really possible when we haven't named what's hard for us and we haven't named that it's hard for me and I want to practice it with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because how is the other person supposed to know that's what's happening?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the naming, a lot of the time, I think we want something from the other person and we don't want to have to ask for it. Right.
I had that
Um,
big time. It's like
yeah.
serious syndrome of it if it had a name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they should know and all these things. And what's neat for me is that it's still as impactful if you have to ask for it.
Yes.
So I'm aware this part of myself wants a pat on the head and to be told I'm a good girl. So I just like say that. I ask for it and they give it to me and it's wonderful.
Yes, I remember doing an exercise in that, and then we brought it into women's group, and everyone was always floored at like, I just used the prompt, I would like acknowledgement for is, and people would just say that. And then the other person would just say, I would like to acknowledge you for, like, they literally repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
You obviously feel the presence and the energy of someone, like, they're not just saying words, you can feel that. But like every person reported that felt really nice. I noticed a shift in my system hearing those words. And not only like, I mean, that's cool in itself and sort of surprising to a lot of people, but I think even cooler than that is people recognizing how empowering it is and how much agency they feel in recognizing, oh, I can just ask for exactly what I need
Yeah.
and get it and then have that kind of experience,
Yeah.
right?
That's amazing.
If you've ever grown up in a situation or been in a relationship where let's go with just childhood first. As a child, it's fair, reasonable, and right to expect that your caregivers figure you out and like figure you out in the most loving, patient, kind, compassionate, curious kind of way and
Can
learn to
you
give you what
say
you
that
need.
whole sentence again slowly for everyone? Like that's like a friggin' revelation, and I think has a pretty emotional impact on people who didn't have that experience. So like 8
Right.
billion people.
Okay. So I'm going to try. I'm going to bring in the essence of it because I don't know the exact words, but you can rewind and replay it. As a child, you have every right, to have the experience, and you deserve to have the experience where your caregivers are taking the time to get to know you, right? To be able to see you and attune to your needs and understand how you need to be taken care of and to really figure you out with curiosity and compassion and kindness and wonder for like who you are as a person and who you're becoming as a person. Like you deserve that. That's the way the parent child relationship should be. If you have a well attuned, well adjusted, available resource parent or caregiver, that's the kind of relationship you can have. That's the kind of experience you can have. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, going back generations, right? So it's not I don't think it's often ill intentioned, but we haven't had that experience. And so we don't know how to pass on that experience. And so it's very fair. Every time we work with people where they say, well, they should just know. I don't want to have to tell them. If I have to tell them what I need, then it doesn't count. Right? It doesn't feel the same way. I completely lived in that place for the longest time because I had such wounding from being a little girl who felt very unseen, misunderstood, and unmet. And I was like, why don't you get me? Why are you not taking the time to get me? Even when I try all different ways to help you understand who I am and what I need and how I feel, I still feel like you either don't get me or make me wrong for being the way I am and needing what I need and feeling how I feel. So a lot of us carry that wounding into our relationships, into our friendships, into our work relationships, into our intimate relationships. And now we have that expectation that was completely fair to have as a child. We have that expectation of a peer and we have that expectation of a partner, when that's not really our roles with each other. To mind read and with no input from you, just know how to love you best and support you best. So I have realized now that, and I didn't like this initially, like, oh, you mean I need to take responsibility for showing someone and guiding someone and letting them know who I am and how I'm wired and how to love and support me best? What?
Mm.
And that if you are matched up with people who you're in alignment with, they will be thrilled to learn that about you. They will want to learn that from you. They will want that information from you because they want to love you well. They want to support you well. All right.
Let that land. Holy crap. For people who don't believe that's true, I just want you to know that it is.
That's all. Right. And then also know that you can really let someone know how it's best to love you. And they might love you and have the best of intentions and the deepest desire to love you well in the way you need. And they might not have that capacity yet, whether it's skill set or whether it's nervous system regulation capacity. And it doesn't mean that you're not deserving. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean you're bad, right? There's so many variables and factors to take into account. But ultimately, what I think I'm saying is it was a very fair need at one point in your life. And it's very correct. And now, as we move into adulthood, notice with so much compassion when you're bringing a child-like expectation to a relationship where that's not your dynamic, that's not your role with each other, right? To have it be so one-sided, right? A parent's role is, I believe, and we're talking about young children here, right? Like, my job is to learn you, right? You just be you. I can't expect you to be articulate exactly how you feel and what you need and what you want, and in all the different circumstances, tell me those things. You're a kid. You're still learning yourself. But my role is to learn you well enough to do my best to give you what I think it is you need and to check in with you moment to moment. Like, am I getting this? And then my role as a parent is to keep updating that map that I have of you as you grow and change and go through different things that maybe I need to tweak it a little bit. Right. But our role in peer to peer relationship and like intimate partner relationship is, hey, maybe I used to love when you hugged me this way. But now, like, something's changed with me, and I'd really like it if you did this instead. That would feel better for me. Like, how is a person supposed to know that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to illustrate the opposite for the contrary compassion skeptics like me, former compassion skeptic. We kind of raise our children to look good for the neighbors and like to contribute well to the economic system, to like impress people with how polite our children are? Or how would you describe this? What you just talked about was like the opposite, the wholehearted loving approach, which is a very different beast.
Yeah. I mean, I chose as a parent, and even before I became a parent, that I wanted to try out a very different way of parenting, because that did really run in my family system. And I think even more so coming from a Chinese background, where those are even more strongly embedded in the culture, generally speaking, of impressing other people, not losing face. We have that expression, like only showing certain sides and like, yeah, impressing. Right. And a child is a reflection of their parents and like all the stuff that means. So I really went into parenting wanting to probably wanting to scrap it all together, that old stuff, and like burn it to the ground. And of course, anytime we get into extremes, like that's not super healthy, but that was a good place for me to start. And, you know, over time, you find your way in that middle that feels more right. But I made my priority as a mom to be like, I want to get to know you. I want to give it you what you need. And that doesn't mean I give you everything you need, but because I don't want to turn you into a human being that thinks that the whole world revolves around you. But by giving you what you need, I mean, when I can't give you the thing you really need or want, that I can express that to you in a way that's loving and kind and understanding of your desire for it. And then I can support you with whatever feelings you have about that. Right? That was my goal as a parent. And like, if we're talking about how to get out of the abusive relationship we have with ourselves, right? Really meaning, how can we be kinder to ourselves? I think of like, what if we approached ourselves the way that I'm describing how I, you know, decided to parent?
Yeah.
And this links me to, you said this, you coupled these words together earlier that I had never really heard in this way. I think we hear a lot of like, oh, self-compassion. And you and I even use that language, self-compassion this and self-compassion that, self-acceptance. But you said, but that self-compassion, and I know when I started learning about it, can sound very vague. And like, what exactly is that? I don't know what that is, right?
It can
But when you
also
say,
sound repellent. I used to pronounce it self-compassion. Like, I actually felt that way.
yes, and you might, with this next thing that I say, you might still have reacted that way. But like, I know when I hear those words coupled up together, I'm like, oh, I have an idea of what that could mean. Like, way more than if you just paired self compassion together. It was self kindness. I
Hmm.
think most of us understand and have a feel of what is kind. We might not feel that same immediate connection with the word compassion. But like, I think if we measured, like, if I did a little analysis of my day from 6 a.m. to even 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., 6 a.m. to 6:05 this morning, right? But now it's like later in the afternoon. If I did a little assessment of my day, in what ways have I been kind to myself? And in what ways have I been less kind? It would sort of become obvious if I grow that practice of checking in, right? And to be able to name, hey, I was kind to myself this morning when I took my time and I didn't rush, right? I was less kind to myself this morning when what do I want to say here? I was less kind. I got to sit with what was less kind. Okay. I was less kind to myself this morning when I was like scrolling random reels. I'm kind to myself this morning when I was like, it happened. Don't want to do it anymore. Put it away. Because I could have said something meaner to myself, but I didn't. And so that's kind. That's a nice inventory to have, like, track how you're being kind or less kind to yourself. And um, it's just neat to start noticing, how do I notice how I'm kind to myself in the way I think about myself, in the way I set myself up for the day, in the expectations I have of myself, in how I talk to myself, in even how I move, like physically move, right? Sometimes I watch people move and I've been that person before where it's like, is so rushed and rigid and like with yourself. Like, what is happening? The way, I think you and I might have talked, the way you put on lotion on your hands, the way you wash, is it aggressive or, and do you like it? Like, so yeah, if you like it that way, fantastic. But like, is that really nice feeling for you? In the way, like for me, in the way you get dressed, like, what's a kinder way? This seems weird to bring kindness with the way you get dressed, but in the way you put on your shirt, what is your usual way? Is it a kind way or is it a less kind way? Right? Is it really aggressive, like just in the movement and the speed and how it all needs to be done? Or is there some warmth and like softness to it?
Hmm.
If that's what you're going for. Maybe some people, it feels good to you to be, more on that aggressive side, but it's just all these things to notice. And when I heard you say self kindness, I was like, oh, most of us know what is kind, right? And most of us do what is kind. Like, we very graciously offer kindness to everybody else in our lives. And I always say to people when they come in and they say, I'm so hard on myself, like I've been trying to change that. I don't know how to change that. I feel really stuck. I'll ask them, like, if your friend is having a hard time, what do you tend to do? Right? And they'll name it, and it obviously will be something kind. Or, I'll say, if you were to connect in with your like nurse energy, your like caring nurse energy, or your inner nurture energy, like what would you do for that person? And they all realize I'm very connected. I'm very familiar to my inner caring nurse and my inner nurturer and my inner mama bear, right? And I was like, great, that's excellent news. And they're sort of confused. Like, what do you mean? Why is that excellent news? I already know I'm super nice to everybody and like just a jerk to myself, right? And then I start doing this motion, which is all this means is this is already wired up in you. You know how to be kind, you know how to be thoughtful, right? It's just a practice now of turning that energy. And if you're watching me, I'm motioning with my hand, you're turning that energy that you typically give outward and turning it back inward to yourself. And when people realize, oh, I already know the things to say, I already know the mindset to bring, I already know like the tone to use, like, yeah, you do. They're like, oh, okay. Well, in that case, that makes it easier. Right? Yeah.
Beautiful. I love this so much. And I know how challenging it can be for us to see this in ourselves without guidance or, immediate examples of ways that are not our typical ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with a bunch of examples when we were talking about what we were going to record. And I think they're going to be really helpful in giving you guys a sense of your inner tone, your ability to hold space for yourself, and just how you communicate with yourself and what you make things mean internally. And they're super practical examples. Do you want to get into that?
Yes. Okay. The first one that we wrote down was what happens, like, how do you treat yourself when you make a mistake? And like, I wanted to say this before you had just said that really nice intro for this next piece. Maybe it's hard to believe when you hear us talking or you hear me talking, because I sound pretty kind to myself right now. But this is absolutely not how I was with myself for most of my life. Like, this is really something I've been learning and practicing and stumbling with and reverting back to my old strong inner critic for, a number of years. And it's changed so much. So much. Because my inner critic was loud and strong and persistent, sort of like my inner 5-year-old. And so if you have a very strong, loud, persistent inner critic, inner judge, whatever you want to name it, know that it's also possible for you to become kinder to yourself, to know what that actually means, to be able to catch it in the moment when that other voice is coming in, right? So it's possible. You can do it. We believe in you.
We
We've
do.
seen it happen for so many people. We've seen it happen for ourselves. And if you're discouraged right now, notice what an inner nurturer or a caring nurse or a sweet, mama bear might want to say to you.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to add a level. I want to refer to these as levels, but I don't know how else to phrase it.
And I feel like we're playing video games. Yes. What's the next level?
Well, so because it used to be self-compassion, it was not natural for me.
What level is that? Was that
Well,
level
like
minus
minus,
92
yeah,
or
yeah,
level 0?
we weren't yet in the game. It was not accessible in any way for me to just go to nice thoughts, right? That would have been fake. I would have been bypassing. And now I'm at this nuance level where it's like, hey, that snark voice still leaps up, right? I no longer believe what it's suggesting, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still there.
Yeah.
And I hope this doesn't confuse matters, but I'm also interested in being compassionate to my snark voice, right?
Yes,
So
that's what we're talking about.
So I'm gonna let it out. If I make a mistake, I used to just collapse in on myself and feel so ashamed. And I like extremes to illustrate what's happening within me. So now if I've made a mistake, I might go, idiot. But I'm not saying it in a mean way to myself. I don't believe that thought, but I'm giving it a voice. And
And the energy, a place to go, right?
yes,
Because it
yes.
is a frustration, right? Yeah. And then what happens after that?
Oh, I get on with my life very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what's very interesting. I want to point this out. And if you're watching, you'll see it. But if you're listening, I'm making fists like Steph was, right? And sort of scowling, you idiot, right? You idiot. There's a way to say that when we live in a certain, I'm going to call it old inner critic energy, where that's very shaming and very constricting and maybe very familiar, but just mean, sort of mean to ourselves, right? You're now doing the exact same thing, right? But it has a different energy and you place a different meaning to it and you carry a different belief about yourself. So the reason why I want to highlight this is it's not always about what we do. It's like, what energy and intention does it come with? What self-belief does it come with? And noticing the changes in that. And like Steph says, even if they're like micro changes. Yeah, I would definitely, if I had a mistake, I would have 2 roots. 3 roots. The old root would be either, like you said, collapse. Like I get really hard on myself and really feel like hiding and want to hide and shameful. That's one. Also, very quickly to that, because I didn't like that feeling, I would just want to disassociate and like disconnect from that completely and like change focus. And there's a difference, I talk about this often, there's a difference in changing focus to allow your system to regulate enough to go revisit that hard thing, right? That I feel like is, if you want to call it air quotes, healthy distraction. But there's also the distraction where I pull myself away from that mistake and that feeling in my body because it feels so gross and overwhelming. And I never revisit it. I just spend the rest of my life and the energy always trying to push away from that. When I get pulled back into it and I feel that twinge sometimes, because something reminds me of it, I go immediately, whoop, like, gotta get out of that. And like I pull myself away and further and further. The way I like to look at that kind of distraction is that's the kind that keeps pulling you away from yourself versus the kind that gives you a step away so you can regulate and bring some compassion to like look at that thing, come back to yourself and look at, why was that painful? Why was that hard? Can I be kinder to myself? Is there something here I can take with me for next time? Right. So that was another route, is just to quickly distance and push, like propel myself away from that yucky feeling. And then I had a third one that's sort of ugly. Like, by ugly, I mean there was a time where I felt like this would have been ugly and horrifying to admit. But I know now I definitely did this, which is I would make the other person wrong and either make them wrong under my breath in my mind, depending on how much I was afraid to lose that connection, or
Amazing. Oh, we're just
or make them
one.
wrong out loud and shame them to pieces because I saw that modeled to me so much that I'm like, this is how you do it, right? Now I got to make you feel really bad and really crappy. And I would oscillate between those. Or like, if I made a mistake, I could also profusely apologize and take on way more responsibility for the issue and make it a way bigger deal than it needed to be because I'm so afraid to be left behind. I'm so afraid of disconnection that I'm like, I better take responsibility for all of this so that you don't feel an ounce of badness and you will still like me and love me and stay. So all of those are varying ways of being unkind that I excelled at. That's my
Oh yeah.
kindness.
So I
I
love it.
excelled at being unkind to myself.
You did. Good job.
Yeah.
What are some of the other examples?
How are you with yourself when you've hurt someone's feelings?
Zing.
Right. And so is it helpful, you think, Steph, if we just list off some of these and just go with it? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Let
Okay.
people pause. Yeah, I would suggest, like, as you're listening to this, I know sometimes you say things that I'm just like, we need to just sit there and feel that for a couple minutes. So I would encourage you guys to pause it after each one and really take a minute with it and, like, feel the thing.
Yeah. Interesting. I couldn't totally read my writing, which meant the good thing of that is I misread this and came up with a new example. So we have an extra example. So the one that originally is written here is, what happens? How do you treat yourself when somebody doesn't message you back or message you back right away? Yeah. And I turned that into, how do you treat yourself if somebody doesn't miss you?
That's a great one because it takes me like 2 months to miss a person, even if I'm really close with them. And I'm like, doesn't
And
mean I don't love you a lot.
my old self would have been so like hurt and I must be horrible and you must not love me.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas now I'm like, it's super spacious with Steph. I know she loves me. She knows I love her. We haven't really talked in a while. We're all good.
It's
Right.
such a nicer, grounded connection feeling. Like, I remember
Mhm.
that desperate, like, okay, there's levels. Again, we're back in the game. People who I know completely, like my best friend Andrea, that I've known forever. We've been best friends since we were 16, and we read each other's minds. If she's not replying to me, like, I've got no problem with that at all. Something has happened. I know there's nothing I could make it mean other than what it is, which is that we just love each other completely. I've got no concerns. There are other people who say with our friend Kara, she reads the message almost as you're writing it, and she replies very quickly. So I now have that expectation. I trust our connection. If she doesn't reply almost immediately, I know exactly where she is, what she might be doing. Like, again, there's no room for story, really. And
Mm.
if there was, it would have a positive foundation, so it wouldn't cause me worry. If we're talking about, like, I don't know, say you're whatever triggers you completely is the thing to look at, right? So if you're dating someone and you don't yet know patterns, you're peering out for pattern making and you're making things mean things, like, there's a lot of room for story and anxiety there, and those are the good
Yeah.
things to look.
So many things. Right.
Yeah.
But notice how you talk to yourself when these things happen, right? How you treat yourself when these things happen, because these things are real life things that happen all the time. And we're either going to treat ourselves, talk to ourselves, believe about ourselves, things that are more on the kinder side or the less kind side, right? And today's purpose is to help you bring some awareness to that with compassion. And like, if you treat yourself and you notice, man, I'm hard on myself, I am like super less kind to myself, I excel at being less kind. You're some version of my old self. Like, let that be okay. And can we celebrate? Look at how good I'm getting at seeing it more clearly, right? Okay. What happens if you don't get the job? I remember that being a yucky feeling. And
Mm.
yeah, and like my ways of trying to cope with not feeling that yuckiness.
I actually don't think I've ever applied for a job that I wasn't confident I would get. I
And
might have
that's
avoided.
interesting also, right? Yeah. What if your house, I love this. This is how our duo works, you and I, and it makes me laugh and giggle and it's very refreshing. I think I had said, what if your house is always a mess? Right? And then Steph very quickly added, what did you add? I just said plus mom. And your mom is coming over?
That's different. There's clean levels for different people, you know?
It's true. There are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like, I know my mom and dad are listening too, so it's quite funny. There are definitely clean levels for different people. And I notice I feel the need to clean my house more before my dad sees it than my mom. And like, that's not rooted in the best things and the best places didn't come from the best place, but that's the reality, right? And I
Mm.
try now. I remember as an adult, I would notice that pull, like, you better make sure it's super clean because your dad is coming over, which is different than mom coming over, even though mom might have things to say about it too. Like, I think my dad valued like perfection so much and all these things. And I had a thing of not wanting to let dad down. And I remember having more and more awareness of this pattern. And a kinder thing I began to do for myself instead of being less kind and pushing myself to do this old pattern was, you know what? It's okay. It's okay if it's a bit messy. And he will have to be okay with it. And I'm going to practice remembering that he still loves me and we're still good.
Yeah.
right? And that was a kinder thing for me. Instead of like stressing myself out completely and to like clean it perfectly, it was kinder to like be softer with myself around that, right? And to remind myself of more helpful things. Now, there would have been a time, and this is where nuance comes in. It might have been kinder to myself to just clean the place so I don't have to listen to a barrage of garbage,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And there could have been a kinder version that said, please don't come over. I'll meet you at the coffee shop,
Yeah.
right? Or I'll come to your house. So there's this where nuance comes in that kinder doesn't always mean the same thing, and it doesn't mean the same thing for every person.
Yes. Yeah. You
Right? It's
don't
like,
need
what
to
do I
force
need?
yourself. Yes. What do I need? And what
What?
could feel better? Like that's where you're in
Mhm.
the possibility space, right? I can
Right.
imagine people having this exact scenario. They're like, whatever person is coming over, I wish to avoid their judgment or criticism or whatever. So my only option is to put myself out and clean this to whatever extent I feel I need to, and then to simmer quietly about it while everything is going on. And we haven't entered that possibility space of could we meet at the cafe instead? Like really getting creative about ways that you could meet your needs and kindness to yourself in that moment.
Yes, I really love that you're stressing that, like, almost like this is an exploration. Like, you're not meant to know what would be kinder for yourself all the time, especially if you've never been welcomed and encouraged to get to know that experience for yourself, right? How would you know what feels better for you if you haven't tried a few different things, if you haven't imagined a few different things? So it's not so much of, well, I've been mean to myself, let's be nicer. Well,
Well,
what
I
the
do
heck
the
is
thing that
nicer?
feels awful to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So giving yourself like a time and space, for the next 3 months, for the next month, for the next year, I'm going to learn to discover what's better feeling for me in different scenarios. How about that?
Yeah. This reminds me of when there's people that you love but you want to have limited time with? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I've heard this, so and it must be family, but it's more than just that. It's like, oh well, these people want to come over for dinner. And like if you're having to say it like that already, we need to visit what's going on. But oh, and they're gonna stay till 2 in the morning, and like I just want them to leave. I'm like, well, okay, first of all, I would just say that out loud. But also in the possibility space, there's we only meet those people at a specific event or a restaurant or some time limited thing that defines that for us.
Yeah, right. So if you know, hey, I 2 a.m. is in my own home is too much for me, right? And I start becoming resentful or just tired or whatever, need my own space. And it feels too hard still, or you're not interested in investing the capacity right now in saying, hey, could you leave at 10? Then a kinder thing, a better feeling thing might be, let's suggest we go to this restaurant. And I know the restaurant closes at 10, and that gives me an easier opening to say, thank you, good night. That was so fun. I can't wait to see you next time.
Gotta
That's
go.
easier.
Yeah.
It's funny when you first said, when you want to see people, but not for that long, you said something like that. I'm like, my old self would say, no, I don't know. Because I had all this old attachment wounding that was like, once I have you, I need to keep you forever because I don't want to lose the connection. Right?
Yeah.
I would be the one, even from a very young age, like who would stay till the end of everything. Who would stay till probably, if I look in hindsight, be like, I think people are probably ready for you to go home now. Right? But like, I'd be like, no, hell no, I'm not going home. I know what happens at my house. I'm not going home. I'm staying. I like to be here more. Right?
Right.
And when I think about that now, I very much can feel the difference of, I'm having so much fun with you. And I think in about an hour I'll be done. And right? Or I've had such a good time and I think I feel done now. That never came up for me before, ever. Right? For various reasons, for that wanting to have constant connection that I was lacking, for not wanting to go back into an environment that didn't feel emotionally safe. But also, I think because I didn't actually know. Like I wasn't really in tune with the body. And this is more as I got older, I just carried the old pattern of let's just always stay till the end. Let's, don't leave until someone kicks you out. But now it's such a different feeling of I can feel like I'm satiated. It's enough. And like if I stay longer, it's going to start not feeling as good anymore. And also the very new, I would say in the last decade feeling for me of I'm excited to be by myself now.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was fun and it would feel really nice to be by myself now.
Yeah.
And to not feel bad about voicing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to talk about timing at some point because there's our personal timing, and then there's the timing of the other parties involved, and it's like it's some synthesis, some external thing that you can keep track of if you're connected to your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting because someone once said, have you noticed the timing of hugs and who lets go first? And that would also be interesting. What do you make that mean?
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
How are you treating yourself when someone lets go of the hug before you would like them to?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What else? When you're feeling anxious, right? And we got into some examples of that. How do you treat yourself when you're feeling that way? And the thing that you said, I wrote it down one way, but you said something else. When your jeans feel too small, is that what you said?
Yeah, your jeans have become too small. What does the self-talk? What
Well,
happens
it's funny
there?
because here's an example of the really embedded self-talk because I thought to myself, well, I would never think the jeans are too small. I would think that I was too big.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, I wouldn't be like, these jeans shrunk. What the heck? I'd be like, you pig, piggy pig. What have you done? You're ruined. No one will
Yeah.
ever love you.
Yeah.
Super kind.
That's
Yeah,
super great.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. A kinder thing I did for myself, because I definitely had that voice before, is I'm going to go buy myself some bigger pants.
I remember you presenting that as an option, and I was like, that's the kindest response I could have imagined. I'm like, oh, I can do that? I don't just have to starve myself immediately and develop this heinously intense workout routine every day until these jeans look amazing?
Yeah. And in the meantime, while I'm doing all those things, keep shaming myself for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, a kinder thing in that moment for me was get a bigger pair of pants. Right. But it would be unkind for me to continue getting a bigger pair of pants over and over and over and over again and
Hmm.
allow myself to get to a point where I feel super unhealthy and like really not what ideally I'd like to how I want to feel in my body, right? And like putting all this food in me that isn't feeling good. And so the first pair of bigger pants might be a really kind thing to do. Like, hey, I'm not going to feel comfortable in those out pants anyways. Let's choose a pair of pants that feels more comfortable. And in the meantime, can I be encouraging of myself? Can I be curious about which tweaks I want to start making, right? That are going to help me feel better in my body. So it's like nuance also. Like
It
buying a
is.
new pair of pants is not always the kinder thing,
No. And
right?
I'm thinking of the shame pants and compassion pants is what I'll call them. So there's like, oh God, like I don't fit into my jeans. I guess eventually I won't be able to wear pajama pants everywhere, so I'll have to buy more jeans that I'll quietly do while shaming myself. And then
Yes,
they'll
right. So
arrive.
again,
Yeah,
same action, same behavior, but one comes from a place of shame. Like
yeah,
maybe you buy the pants anyways, but the whole way, like how you talk to yourself and even how
yeah,
you feel when you wear them
yeah,
is this yucky, unkind way.
yeah,
Or a very pleasant, like, you know what? It happened. I'm going to get myself a nicer feeling pair of pants, and then we're going to be curious about how to change things up.
yeah. Same pants, totally different attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you find yourself worried about something that other people don't worry about or are not worried about?
I urge us to say, yes, stupid.
I
Quit
mean, I think
comparing
my old
me.
pattern was that if they're not worried, then this must not be a valid worry. So I
Yeah,
shouldn't be worried, or, oh, I'm not worried either. Right.
yeah,
I'd either pretend I wasn't or I'd be like, you're overreacting, right?
Right.
You
Yeah, I
obviously
should
need to chill out.
diminish myself, or that there's some simple thing that I must just be missing that means this shouldn't be a worry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking of a baby looking externally to see how should I feel about this thing, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. And this is interesting. That example of the baby checking in with how I should feel, or a young child. And you can tell on a child's face, a young child's face, assuming they haven't learned to hide things yet. When you give them that look of it makes sense that you're scared or you're upset, and it's like something settles in them. And they might even still cry. Actually, sometimes that's an invitation. They feel like it's safe enough to cry because you validated that that was scary. That is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
You can also tell in a child when they feel a certain thing, and when they check in and look at you, your face and your energy gives the message, not even your words. Your face and your energy already gives the message of what's wrong with you. Why would you be upset about this? Don't make
Mm-hmm.
this a big deal. And they have a moment of, I think, confusion and then shut down, or something is happening in that system that's different from,
Yeah.
it makes sense to feel this way. I'm allowed to feel this way. Someone's here to help me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, even as babies, we're noticing very, very quickly of what is kind and what is unkind energy.
And we're getting programmed with that, right? So you're a baby, you get a shock. Your experience is that everybody looks at you like you've been wasting their time. I mean, we're carrying that forward with us
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What happens when you fail a test, right? You don't do well. I remember the first and only, I think, exam that I failed. It was not a good feeling. I don't think I was very kind to myself. But what's interesting was I did sort of allow, and that part was kinder. I did allow our professors to help me feel a little bit less mean, right? Because it was our first, I remember it was a business math exam, and first exam in university. And they had sort of told us this before, but I don't think anyone really believed. They're like, this is not high school. You cannot study the same way. You actually have to practice things, right? And understand the concepts, not just flip the page and understand the words on the page. And, we all sort of went and did our thing. And then, as they had predicted, the majority of people failed that test. And I'm sure my old mean voice came online, but I guess the one kinder thing I was able to do is when they told us again, hey, this is what we were talking about. This happens. It happens every year to every class. So you're not unusual. So we're going to give you this one opportunity to take this message in, go home, really practice your study habits, and figure out what your study skills are going to be and habits are going to be. And then we're going to give you the test again, and you can try again. I think what was more kind that I was able to do was like, oh, it's not just me. It happens all the time. I don't think I still love the idea that I failed a test, but I allowed a little bit. And I think this is what you mean, or an example of the levels. I couldn't be like super self forgiving of it yet, but I could take in what people were saying to me, like, okay, I guess that's okay. Right. And I think that's a really interesting things in different ways of recognizing your levels of kindness. Can you just be a little bit less mean, a little bit more kind? And also, what's your willingness to let someone else help you be a little bit less mean and a little bit more kind? And what's your willingness to let that land and sink in just a touch more? Because I think for a lot of us, we do have somebody, or if we were to be willing to tell somebody, there would be at least one person that would probably bring a little bit more kindness to us in that situation than our old critical self would be.
Definitely.
So, are you willing to allow that person to support a little bit?
Yeah. I think that's such an important point, the extension and all that reveals to us. The part about not being alone is also huge. And in that context, what a gift. You're in physically a room with a whole bunch of people who are in the same
Yeah.
boat as you and being told that explicitly.
Yes.
This is the case almost all of the time in all of these problem situations we're outlining. We just don't have the circumstances in which we get a huge room full of people admitting the same thing and feeling supportive. But
Yeah.
without exception, whatever it is that you're thinking and feeling, millions of other people think and feel the same way. You just haven't
Yeah.
been exposed.
Yes.
And it'd be such a relief if
Yes.
you were.
Exactly. And so this is a skill to grow. And I think this is in Kristen Neff's work, her self-compassion work, which is, I think, one of the components is to remind yourself you're human and this happens to other people. Right. And when you said we're not always lucky enough to be in a physical room where we can actually see, right, these people. And part of that, like, yes, you're right. We're not always in that physical setting. But one reason why we don't see that is that's usually a pretty dormant muscle to look for evidence that other people have experienced this too. Other people have made mistakes. Even if I look down this list, we know for a fact other people have made mistakes. Other people have hurt someone else's feelings. Other people have experienced not being messaged back by someone. Other people have had people not miss them. Other people have not gotten the job. Other people's houses have been messy. Other people's houses have been messy and their critical mom comes over. Other people's pants have also not fit. And what do you notice when you orient to that, even if it's just for a moment? Every person I've encountered where we spend some time with that, they're like, oh, even the most like hardened people who are like so good and so adamant at I'm the worst one, a tiny bit begins to shift like, okay. They might even get a little bit annoyed. Oh, someone else has it as bad as I do? I'm supposed to be the one that has it the worst. Yes. So what else is on this list? If you're struggling in your relationship, right? I feel like some people are very open with that. Other people feel very shameful about that. Or if you don't feel connected to your partner anymore. We had written down here, what if your partner rejects your sexual advances? What do you make that mean all about yourself? Is it kind? What happens when you've repeatedly asked for something from someone or repeatedly set a boundary with someone and they still don't respect your boundary? What do you make that mean about yourself? How do you talk to yourself after that happens? How do you treat yourself after that happens? Do you even acknowledge the hurt? And by acknowledge, I mean, do you care for your hurt? Not do you just acknowledge? I think a lot of us might be like, you might acknowledge, I'm pissed, right? That someone didn't honor my boundary. But do you care for your hurt? That's different. And how do you care for your hurt in that moment? Do you just vent to someone and vent how pissed you are and then carry on with your next task? Or is there some care for the hurt part of you, right? What happens when you encounter a scenario where you're like, I know if I just did this, my life would be better. And I just can't get myself to do the thing, right? I know that if I just put everything away right after I use it in the spot where it belongs.
How do you feel about that, G? Self-compassion.
Right? Yeah, like I used to be so, like, again, I have a pattern of either super hard on myself or I want to just bypass it completely. Right? Not even see it. And now it's like I've walked past that thing 5 times now. Let's not walk past it the 6th time. I actually feel, right? It's interesting, the difference. And I feel now, instead of walking past it the 6th time, it's the 6th freaking time. I better throw it away now, right? It's like, I see it. It's time to throw it away. I want to throw it away. Like, it's an emergent energy. It's like this energy that comes from kindness of, that would feel much nicer if that wasn't there on the floor. So I'm going to go put it away now, right? Very, like, the action again is the same, picking something up and putting it away or throwing it away, but the energy from which it comes is so different. And that's the thing. Like, we want to notice the energy in which we're doing things. What is fueling how we do things?
That energy is basically your entire experience of life. Like, whatever energy you're generating internally, the words, thoughts, feelings, all of that, that is your experience. You manifest that in the world around you. It's so important.
It's important. My energy is drying up.
Hey, me too. You're not alone. And we're at an hour and a half already. We could probably talk forever. And I'm sure everyone would love that. That's my kind thought.
Yeah.
You had mentioned hand on head earlier. Did you want to do that for a
Yeah.
closing practice?
Okay. So that was maybe a little abrupt, but I felt I needed to mention I'm getting tired.
I like that. I'm an abrupt person. I'm always down for abrupt
Yeah.
and forthcomingness. Also, a great thing to notice. How do you feel when something abruptly is announced or changes?
So we're going to sort of shift now towards a closing practice, but hopefully this episode gave you felt a little bit more kind and brought some of that kindness energy that you could recognize in your system. And maybe you want to ask yourself, like, whether you listen to this episode or any of the other ones, what is it that you notice? Like, you obviously come back and listen to this podcast for a reason. And I'm assuming it's not because we're super mean to you. So, how does your system know that when you listen to us, there's a little bit more kindness here than maybe you're used to, right? Or there's a little bit more kindness here than you're used to giving yourself. And like, what might you be able to take away, whether it's from this episode or any of the other ones, that could help you, like Steph said, shift to that next little level of a little less mean or a little more kind, right? And then to be kind to ourselves, we're going to wrap things up.
Yay.
This practice I want to share with you because I've been hearing lately, been reminded lately by people I'm working with that they either forget how good this feels or didn't realize how good it feels. And so let's feel the lower half of your body first, however you want to do that. So I'm just pushing my foot on the ground and I feel my butt and smushing into the ottoman. And so this is a little bit of like feeling the bottom of your body. And then we're going to bring in feeling the top by placing a hand on the top of your head and just seeing how that feels. And you may need to put it on the side of your head or the back of your head just to feel the difference. And we're not saying the top is the best, but just to notice what it feels like to have something on your head. Many of us don't get that sensation that often. And then, Steph, I saw you doing this, and I did this the other day too. I put 2 hands on my head and notice what feels better. And I notice for right now, 2 hands feels like too much pressure, too heavy, right? But I have had some times where 2 hands feels better.
Feels good for me to push down as hard as I can with 2 hands.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So you might notice also there's a difference. If I push hard, it feels very different than when I just lay 2 hands on top.
Ugh.
Yes, yes, right. And I notice actually the best for me is usually, and I think right now I notice it too, 1 hand on the front of my body and 1 hand on the top of my head, right? And sometimes I know that I've liked forehead, but forehead gives me a very different feeling than top of the head.
Yeah. And I'll reiterate that this is a very informative, simple practice where you're learning what feels good to you and what might feel better. We're like tapping into that possibility space of what touch could exist. When and where might I like that touch? What might feel better?
Yes. And like here we're discovering nuance, right? Like when we've gone through hard things and trauma will take away our ability to be able to notice nuance. So as we're healing and growing, you have more access to nuance and you can actually practice looking for nuance to have more access to nuance, which is like maybe it's not touching your head doesn't always feel good and each type of touch doesn't feel just as good. Can you notice the differences? When you just move your hand a little bit differently to a different position, a different amount of pressure, different spot, right? Notice how your body lets you know this feels a little bit less bad. This feels a little bit nicer. This feels more neutral. I have no preference for this, but it's not terrible. Great feeling states to be aware of for life, right? And for relationship.
I hope all of this improves everybody's relationship with themselves. That's really what we're doing here. Okay, well, thank you guys for being with us. As always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. See you next time.
Bye.